Welcome back to the main stage. My name is Jonathan McCrea. I'm a science and technology broadcaster and a communications consultant with Smart Media. I'm here comparing some of the talks on the main stage here at Career Zoo. Really excited about this one. It's entitled Cyber Security and the Digital Frontier. Joining me now are Slavomir Prokop, who is Vulnerability and Threat Lead at Bank of Ireland, Richard Harris from FireEye, he's the Director of Service Delivery and Investigations there, Jason Guy, who's Senior Manager of Cybersecurity at EY, Chris Papathanasiou, who is a Cyber Network Defense Director, and Raluca Saceanu, who is the Marketing and Quality Manager for Smarttech. You're all very welcome, guys. Because you're just nearest to me, Chris,
sure.
I want you to kind of lay out what the story is at the moment with cybersecurity. It seems that we're constantly being barraged with messages more and more telling us to be really cautious about cybersecurity, and we're getting more and more attempts to hack our information. Are we at like the worst possible time for security in the history of information?
I think as more of our data goes online, can they hear me?
Can we get some more volume for Chris, please? Go ahead.
As more of our personal data goes online, I mean, today, today we have more data than we did yesterday. And yesterday we had more data than we did before. And this wealth accumulation of data just increases and increases, and it's only getting more. That means that attackers have more of an incentive to hack into us and to target this data and steal it. At the same time, as a security industry as a whole, we're very much playing a game of catch-up. We're playing a game of, we're not leading the pack, we're at best at a level or trying to catch up. There's some work being done in academia and in other spheres of trying to predict when attacks happen. But that's still in the experimental phase. So yes, we are at the very pinnacle of being targeted, but we were at the very pinnacle of being targeted 5 years ago, and that's something where
I mean, it's just it will never get better. Technically, I mean, Richard,
it's a game of catch up.
But it's interesting you say that, because that was any hacker movie you ever watched, and there's some good ones and some, we all know there's some pretty bad ones. They all say that the hackers are always one step of the game. Will that ever change, do you think?
It will change. It will change. When we're getting there, we're getting to the place where we're monitoring networks, we're monitoring where all these hackers hang out, we're monitoring their conversations, we're masquerading as one of them, and by kind of joining these cliques and being one of these guys, we're kind of taking a different approach to kind of staying one step ahead of the game, and that's the current way that we're trying to counteract that.
Richard?
It's through threat intelligence.
I mean, I think I spent a number of years in law enforcement, so if you actually look at what's happening now, as we adopt more technology, our lives become more online, we're hosting more data, it's accessible. We're kind of seeing just an adaptive criminality.
Can people hear, folks? Okay, so you can shout. That's okay. You can say we cannot hear. That's okay. Then you can tell me. Okay. So Richard, that needs to be a little bit more like that.
Is that any better?
That should be better. And can we get just a test on Richard's mic, please?
My mic is fine.
Your mic's fine. Raluca's fine.
Yeah, no,
is that
fine.
working now?
That's much better, Richard.
Okay.
Can we hear Richard now? Fantastic.
Yay.
Great. Interaction. All right.
Yeah.
Start from the beginning, Richard.
Yeah. So my background, I started life in law enforcement. So I think as our society is adapting more to technology, we're spending a lot more time online. Our data, our information's online. Our access to our financial systems is online. We're seeing the criminals migrate. I mean, this is all traditional criminality. If you look at like ransomware, it's blackmail, stealing intellectual property from organizations and then selling it. That's espionage. Destroying systems that are online through denial of service. That's kind of criminal damage.
So it's all the same. It's all the same crimes. They're just electronic this time.
It's essentially just moved into the electronic age, and I think that's the challenge for everybody and for companies, for vendors, for companies like ourselves. Is how do we adapt to the new technologies as we become more kind of cyber focused. I mean, the big challenge or big changes we're seeing over the last few years is our increasing adoption of cloud-based services. So for 20 years now, most companies have been defending their environments by putting security products and building a harder outer shell in companies and sort of developing kind of
a sort of a bulletproof Fort Knox type
Absolutely, but of course,
security.
as we're now moving to cloud service, we're essentially dissolving that security and moving data into cloud services, possibly in some cases, before we really understand the risks and the threats that are going to be posed by pushing our data into that sort of space.
Criminal organizations are professional. They act with discipline, with professionalism. It's no longer the 17-year-olds in their parents' basement hacking. These are real professional organizations. They come with customer service, so if you want to go on the dark web and buy some malware, you get some nice customer service with that. They act very fast. They conduct customer service afterwards. It's really
We've entered an age
professional now.
of professionalism when it comes to
I think
cyber criminals.
That's very scary for organization nowadays.
You were saying outside, Raluca, that these organizations, these hacking organizations, aren't really targeting, well, they're also targeting smaller businesses for smaller hits as well as the large organizations.
Of course, because why would they go ahead and target a huge company where there's a possibility that it might not go ahead when they can go for smaller companies and go for more number of them? And ransomware is a really good way to get their money.
Yeah, but it's a great example. But, I mean, ransomware is the new, is the new way of delivering.
Does everyone know what ransomware is?
Okay, ransomware is some malicious code. I suppose what you would maybe call a virus in the past gets onto your computer. It starts encrypting data on your computer, so encrypting files on your computer and files that your computer has access to. So if your computer's on a network with access to lots of files, it'll encrypt those too. And when it's done, it locks your screen and gives you a message saying, please now pay a ransom. The ransom could be quite small, maybe 2 bitcoins, so, $700 or $800. So you pay it. But if they have multiple systems in that organization or across many organizations, then it's a very lucrative business. So these are big businesses in different parts of the world. They operate in the same way as what we'd expect a traditional business. As Raluca says, customer service. They go to work from 9 to 5 or perhaps 24/7 these days, and their aim is to make money, and they're making.
So they've got hold music and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's and now what do? You ring them up and said, sorry, I paid the ransom, and sorry, it didn't work. So, okay, well, these they don't really have morals.
Absolutely, there's no guarantee if that threat actor is going to unlock your computer if you're gonna pay. It's important as well to note that kind of threat is also touching not only businesses but everybody around.
Yeah.
Because of the Internet of Things, a lot of devices, a lot of TVs or your even fridge is connected at this moment of time to the internet, and that might be infected by ransom. That already happened, and it happened in a case of television, TVs. So they were infected with a malware, with a ransom, and people had to pay in order to unlock that TV to watch.
What? So how do you send a message to someone's TV to tell them to pay the ransom?
So your TV basically has, your smart TV has a computer inside it. Your smart TV is connected to the network, your home router, hackers get into your home network, they put ransomware on your computer. But I mean...
But I just want to get back, because I find this fascinating. Yeah. They lock up your TV, but then how do they tell you where to go? Do they put a message on your TV?
You're getting a message on the screen with the information how to log in on that website. Once you are getting on that website, it's giving you full guidance how to obtain bitcoins, so virtual currency, in order to pay that ransom. Once that ransom is being paid, they are telling you and they are sending updates to your TV. And if it's going to work, you are going to have your TV back. If it's not going to be, it won't work.
My TV could be hacked. That's pretty... Well,
there's also almost a level of customer service with that, because it's become so sophisticated and so organized. You've got a whole industry, so there are people out there writing the code and developing, if you like, the ransomware systems, and they then rent or sell that capability to organize.
So ransomware is a service.
Absolutely.
Oh, it is. Yeah. You can actually buy ransomware as a service.
Okay, so I want to actually, are cyber threats becoming more sophisticated now that these smart companies are bundling up their criminal services online and selling them almost like services that you might buy from Amazon. Does that mean that anybody can go out and I can grab your credit card numbers? So are cyber threats becoming many and less sophisticated, or is there a lot of sophistication also happening?
What we must remember is that the simple stuff still works. So if you want to steal hundreds of dollars, you do ransomware, or thousands, or hundreds of thousands. If you want to steal hundreds of millions, what you do is you send an email from pretending to be the CEO, instructing the accounts department to send a payment to a third-party account. And believe me, this is a multi-hundred million dollar fraud. And it's happened throughout Europe, throughout the world. This is something that is very difficult to protect against, bypasses all security controls, because it relies on you not wanting to question authority. It relies on the CEO said.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. I mean, every client that I go to talk to at the moment, is having this happen. They're all aware of it, and they realize it's happening. But it's down to people as well. So if the person believes that that email is real and has the authority to transfer that money, that money will be gone. I spoke to.
Oh my God! Wow.
I spoke
so
to
forget about your hacking tool. All you need is
you just need to
Yahoo
ask.
Mail. Oh no, don't mention Yahoo.
To one client.
Yahoo Mail and something that looks like the CEO's signature at the bottom.
Wow.
I spoke to one client. He was sitting on the train, and a message came through to his phone, an email from his phone, and he turned to his colleague and said, "You've just sent me an email asking me to transfer 100,000 euros. I didn't see it on your phone. Did you send that?"
Wow.
That's just lazy, but there could be more sophisticated ways. Like, for example, in Smarttech, we do a lot of spoofing research. So our CEO went on, I think it was a news talk on RT, one of those programs, and
for legal reasons, let's just say a broadcaster.
and he spoofed the moderator. And the moderator got an SMS from his wife saying, "Hey darling, my car broke down. Can you please send me 2,000 euro or something like that?" And he was like, "She never calls me darling." And he was he was panicking. And in the end, he wanted to do it. And then our CEO said, "No, it's a spoofing." So it's becoming very sophisticated, very social. It's a social engineering way of stealing.
And on that point, that my wife never says darling, that was the only thing that stopped $10 million coming out of a bank recently. Wow. That I was involved in.
That's
investigating.
the small social language
that the CEO would never say thanks. He'd just say kind regards.
And the attacks as well, they're not necessarily, they don't have to be that sophisticated. I mean, my team based in Dublin here, we monitor customer environments and we hunt for evil essentially in those environments. And we go against state-sponsored attackers pretty much every week. And we dealt with one probably last year where a customer was sent a spear phishing email, one of these emails purporting to be from someone in the company. Only sent it, there's about 20,000 people in the business. They only sent it to about 25 people to try and avoid the kind of the spear phishing detection. Because obviously if you get lots of kind of shotgun approach to a company, then that will hopefully go through the technology.
Right.
It was clicked on by one of those 25 people, and that infected the machine, and the attackers were able to get in and steal a lot of intellectual property. Now we detected it and alerted the customer, and they dealt with it within about 24 hours. But then about a month later, again, more spear phishing emails, but this time they sent just one email. Guess who they sent it to? The person who clicked on it the first time. And what did that person do?
Clicked on it again.
They clicked on it again.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
they probably didn't click on any more emails after that, did they? Not in that company anyway.
Not.
Can I just do an audio check? Can you guys hear Richard okay? Sort of, okay. Okay, what I'm going to ask all of our panelists is to project a little bit, okay? Just imagine we're on stage at the Abbey. So you were talking about that idea of it doesn't need to be particularly sophisticated, but when we do get hacked, do we, what do you find in terms of companies? Should companies be saying, yes, we got hacked, this is what happened, or do big organizations, like, for example, Bank of Ireland or AIB, if they put up their hand and say, we got hacked, is that a terrible business move? or is that sort of culture changing? Maybe Jason, you might take that one, because at EY you probably deal with people on this sort of a level.
Yeah, so we would deal with post-breach and pre-breach. So I suppose beforehand, it's if you go out to an organization and you run a session with them saying this is how you handle an attack. Okay, this is what you do. These are all the different roles. If that organization has kind of accepted that people do have roles, then they'll be in a good position to handle the breach when it does happen. If they sit there and say the IT team will deal with that, then they're in trouble.
Right.
The TalkTalk breach last year, okay, the CEO of TalkTalk was on the news on Saturday, Sunday and Monday, and every day her story changed because she was asking the IT team, well, what can I tell the newspapers? What can I tell the media? Give me something to tell them. And they gave the best information they had at that time, which turned out to be wrong on Saturday and wrong on Sunday, perhaps wrong on Monday. So she'd lost face. Where if we kind of turn it on its head, JP Morgan, a number of years ago, JP Morgan came out and said, right, we are accepting that cybersecurity is real. It's a big problem for us. We're a big organization. We're going to invest heavily in it. Okay, and they did. They invested heavily in it. But they also said at the time, but we cannot stop a breach from happening. We will be breached. Okay, we'll do everything we can to prevent it. We'll do everything we can to detect it, and then we'll do everything we can to manage it quickly. So when they were breached, they came out and said we've been breached. Initially share price went down. Okay, people didn't like it. It was bad news. But after 6 months, their share price had actually improved. They had shown that they weren't hiding this. They were dealing with the problem. They accepted that the problem was there, and they handled it.
Out of interest, let's just talk about banks, for example. I suppose that's where you keep your money. If the audience wouldn't mind raising your hands, if you found out that the bank that you banked with had been hacked, would that concern you? And just keep your hand up. Would that concern you a small amount, a large amount? Raise your hand if it's a large amount. Would anyone consider, if your bank had been hacked and your account details have been given out, would you consider closing or moving banks? Okay, wow. So there's a lot of people. So it does. I think the worry about being upfront is, it's real. If people are actually thinking, look, if that happened with my bank, I would consider changing it. So it's not imagined. I think people.
There isn't a bank in the world that hasn't been hacked in one shape, form, or another. Every single bank, every single computer system online has had hack attacks against it. It's how close did it get to the crown jewels? How close do they get to the SWIFT systems? How close do they get the systems, the accounting systems, the ledger systems? It's how close do they get to that?
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's not very close.
Okay.
Oftentimes it's very low-level stuff that doesn't pass that perimeter and doesn't get that close.
Well, I think the messaging is obviously very important.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ask the same question again, if your bank was hacked, they never told you about it, and then you found out on some sort of social media, who would be more concerned about that?
Yeah.
So you should show hands.
Yeah, if you found out on social media and the bank didn't say straight away, look, we've been hacked, we're doing something about it.
And that's a big. I mean, that's a big change.
Communication is actually a large part of cybersecurity. Well, at least limitation after it's happened, right?
I think it's very important as well to mention that in a case of incidents or hacks to the bank is obliged to inform regulator. There's no more hiding, because obviously banks need to look after customers' money, need to make sure that they are safe and secure. Systems are tested, systems are patched, so you have a confidence that bank is not hiding anything and they are trustworthy.
And we asked the question, if we also said that your bank can't prevent itself from being hacked, would you still answer it? Now, if that hack comes from some kids in a bedroom in Belfast, which is where TalkTalk came from, then you would expect your bank to be able to deal with that. If that comes from North Korea, so the nation state has attacked your bank, would you still say, well, my bank should have stopped that? These breaches are not preventable. Okay,
Yeah.
If somebody wants to spend
There's no
enough
such
money
thing as
to
total
attack,
security.
you can't.
I want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think a company should do when it comes to being hacked? Like, is it tell everyone everything as quickly as possible, or
Well-
because is a balance there, right?
In May 2018, they will not have a choice, because we're going to have a new regulation, probably the biggest regulation ever to come into Europe, and they will have to notify within 72 hours, otherwise they'll get a fine, a really big fine. It's 5% of the annual
Worldwide.
turnover, or maximum
Worldwide
20
income.
million.
Yeah,
Maximum 20 million. So if it's over 20 million, obviously, that's
Up
it.
to even
That's
Up
a
to,
lot
yeah.
of money.
growing license
if
for
you-
banking.
so any company, if they don't disclose that they've been hacked within 72 hours, could
Exactly.
get a fine
And
of 5%.
That's
up to 20
one.
years.
That's one of the obligations. There's several other obligations
Okay.
that this
So
regulation.
what's this called? This
GDPR is the General Data Protection Regulation.
okay.
And it's not defined. It's not defining fines if you get breached. That's it's about gross negligence if you don't do what the standards and
Yeah,
what the,
yeah,
you
yeah,
don't
yeah.
comply with traditional or modern security.
Because it's our right
practice.
to know as customers, right?
And
We were
the
talking about nation-supported hacking, and I wanted to hear from each of you on this. Do we need to worry about that sort of stuff here in Ireland? Is the stuff that happened with Yahoo, where American organizations basically said, look, open up your mail accounts and let us have access to your data. Do we need to worry about that in Ireland?
Well, it would be foolish to assume it doesn't happen. GCHQ is the biggest signals collection point in the world, and it collaborates with the Five Eyes, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, the US. So it'd be foolish to say it doesn't happen.
Richard?
It does happen.
Well, we know it does happen.
Whether
I mean,
we should worry is a separate matter. Do we have something to hide? Whether I like my personal data being harvested and looked at and scrutinized, of course I will. Do I have something to hide? No. Now, that's how it's approached.
we know it happens because FireEye published in April 2012 the seminal document on the APT1 group, which was a Chinese PLA-sponsored kind of an army-based hacking team that have been essentially hacking the planet, stealing intellectual property. Now, we released that as a company because we had actually attributed 201 investigations that we'd carried out over the last 7-8 years.
Wow.
We were able to attribute that activity to that one group, so we published it. And that kind of put APT, Advanced Persistent Threats, on the map.
So
And
this
it still
is
happens.
state-sponsored IP theft.
Yes.
Wow.
Now, it's changing. I mean, originally when I joined the company nearly 5 years ago, it was about intellectual property and stealing plans. What we've seen over the last 12, 18 months is APT groups focusing more on personal information, personal data, for whatever reason. And there's still an awful lot of sort of geopolitical, if you've got countries, where they've got bordering regions, they will hack their neighbors to figure out what their plans are, what their moves are. So, this stuff happens day in, day out. So we just have to assume. The question is it's rare in principle you would expect a government to focus its capabilities on a commercial organization.
Raluca?
I believe that since we live in the era of the digital world, no country is safe, no company is safe. In Ireland, we've got a lot of infrastructure that is based on IoT, based on intelligence. It's connected to the internet. There's a lot of personal information everywhere flowing around. And there was a recent attack. I think the Gardaí were attacked. They were stolen, I don't know, some millions of information. So it's no country is safe, no company is safe.
Ah!
What we need to, so should we worry that North Korea is going to take our photographs? They can have them if they want, but what we do need to worry about is the organizations that are important to us, the organizations that run the country. So a recent breach in, I forget where in the world, of a water system was able to change the chemical mix of the water that was going into the drinking water. So it was able to fiddle with that. So the mix of protection, chlorine or whatever goes into the water was changed from a nation state breach. And if something like that happens, that can cause real human difficulties. So that can cause major.
So that's kind of moving on to terrorism.
Absolutely. So that's what that's what our organisations worry about. They need to make sure that doesn't happen, and we need to I suppose trust that they're going to do that.
So I guess as well, it's worth to mention on what you said, Jason, that there was also attempt of the hacking to the nuclear plant, yes, which is obviously huge huge risk for the people that live nearby a nation. So risk is there. We know that. Nation states actors are there. We know that too. But the most important most important message, I would say, is be awareness. So try not to save your data in places that you don't know. Try to, keep PII close to you. Personal identify information.
What's it like? Actually, I might want to start with you with this, Raluca, because you're the only lady in the panel. What is it like working in cybersecurity? Like, is it a career for everyone, or do you have to be a certain type of person? Because you hear careers who people might be thinking about. What is it like for you as a woman working in the area of cybersecurity?
It's amazing, I would say, because if you want to work in cybersecurity, you have to have a passion for cybersecurity. And if you do have that passion, it's amazing. For me, even if I'm the marketing manager or the quality manager, I still have to know about these things. I still have to do my research. I work very closely with my research and development team because I want to find out about, what are the latest threats? How can we ultimately protect our customers from them? So it is a very exciting sector. It is for everybody, but for everybody who has a passion for it.
When people think of cybersecurity people and hackers, they think of people just staring at screens. Is that the reality of your lives, Richard? Do you spend your life just staring at a screen, tapping away?
I used to.
Damn you!
I have people that do that for me now, so that's the cool thing. But that is part of the attraction, though, for some people as well. We have a response center here I have about 15 analysts that sit there and they hunt all day long on computers, and we roll off 24/7. So we're a managed service provider. We do it for our customers, and we bring the customers in occasionally. We once had a customer came in, and he saw the guys working there, and he said, "Wow, this looks really boring. Why would you want to do this?" and it was really interesting because two of my analysts, they stood up and they just kind of glared at this customer, and they said, "You're joking. This is amazing. The stuff that we get to do every day.
Exactly.
The fact that we're going up against state-sponsored attackers almost on a week-to-week basis. There's nothing cooler for them. So it's a really interesting industry for those people that, again, as Vanula says, passionate about security. That's the key component.
Yeah.
They've got to love this stuff.
It's finding the needles in the haystack. And anybody who's good at finding needles in haystacks will love cybersecurity because there's a lot of needles and the haystacks are massive.
Yeah.
And once you find those needles, they're so fascinating to examine. I mean, coming back to nation state sponsored,
there's a real thrill to sort of figuring out how something works or figuring out how to unlock or find someone.
We get our fix from this. Other people get their fix from other things. This is where we get our fix. But these attackers, when somebody says we see most attackers coming from China, that's only because the last point that you saw them coming from is China. They've actually bounced their connection through 10 computers, through 50 countries.
I think that's one end of it, so that's the
So it might be an American attacker bouncing his connection through China. FireEye picks it up, says it's actually China, but because it's so hard, attribution is so hard.
Okay,
and
Jason.
that's very difficult.
I think that's the sexy end of it, you might
Right,
say.
yeah.
So, I spend a lot of time looking at the screen as well, but it's at a spreadsheet or at a PowerPoint deck. So I'd be out talking to business. So I'm not really talking. I talk to the IT teams, but I'm talking to CEOs and CFOs and that. And I'm talking about because this is no longer an IT problem. This is a business problem. The information and the importance is business information. It's real business money that's been lost. So I'd be interviewing people and taking looking for the risks in the things they do every day. So it's the area is about risk. So if you like looking for problems, if you're kind of suspicious of things, then cybersecurity is a career for you.
If you're a cynical old bastard.
Yes. My kids
actually, I
love
want
me.
to ask you about that because I used to work in information security a long time ago, right? I worked for a large multinational company that's seen as one of these. It's a European company, very traditional. And
we're taking CVs, Jonathan. So.
Huh?
We're taking CVs.
But my job was to make sure that people did like the most basic stuff, like don't put your password up on the screen, don't have password as your password. all these sort of stuff. And it was the simple basic human of, I don't care about any of this because it doesn't affect me ever, so I'm not going to do it. And that was the attitude of the entire staff. And as somebody who works in information security, you're just so frustrated that no one would do just the basic things because they thought this will never happen to me, which is the same way most people think when it comes to cybersecurity. Has that changed, or is every information security officer in every organization still going, Mary, don't put your flipping password on the screen again? Is that still happening in
Yes.
business?
That sort of stuff is...
Ryan, we better wait for the voice of God. That's a special on Luro.
Yes.
Go on.
Now that kind of work is still critical to most businesses, and I think that's the challenge. You're not going to be very effective at trying to detect advanced attackers if you can't kind of educate your staff, your employees about good IT hygiene, password security, because that makes it trivial for attackers to get in. So that is still key, even though we talk about all this sexy stuff and the advanced persistent threat space. The basic stuff is you still have to get that right. If not, your 16-year-old hacker in the back bedroom is going to compromise your global corporation, not a nation-state attacker.
Actually, who works here at the moment? If you raise your hand, if you're working in an office environment, would you just raise your hand for me, please? Okay. How good is the general security consciousness of your employees? Like, are there people where the password is up on the screen, or do you listen to the information security people? Raise your hands if you think the security culture in your company is pretty good. Okay, and and then for those who work in a company who don't think it's good, raise your hand. 1, 2. Okay, so I suppose we're in a tech thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are a few people. So it does still happen. It's so frustrating. Such a crappy job, knocking on people's doors, giving out to them.
I don't know. I'm going to speak in a few minutes, and so don't come. Close your ears if you're going to come along, because you steal my thunder away. The University of Luxembourg did a study earlier this year where they went out to talk about cybersecurity, and they had a control group where they talked about cybersecurity, and then they asked for the password. And of the control group, I think 23% of the people shared their password. That's the control group, and they got a gift when they left. And then the second group, they gave them chocolate first, and then they told them about cybersecurity and asked them for the password. And 46% of those people. So all you had to do was give somebody chocolate and then share their password.
As a brief segue, this is my business, so I train people on how to communicate, and it goes from scientists to corporate culture. If you want something out of someone, give them food. There's great psychological data to support the fact that if you're sitting down while someone's eating and you suggest something that is completely off their political spectrum, they'll go, that's interesting. I might. So if you're, there's a great study in Israel where they looked at judges who were giving parole hearings. So they found all the judges. They looked at the data and they said, if you had your parole hearing just before lunch, no chance. If you had your parole hearing just after lunch, you had a 33% higher chance of getting out of jail in Israel. Wow. Because the judge wasn't hungry anymore. So judge is literally what justice is what the judge had for breakfast. Wow. There's a little tip for you. So is this culture that we're having in terms of cybersecurity, is it going to change? You talked a little bit, Chris, about we're going to get better. Can we ever really predict the actions of threats in the internet? Maybe, Slav, you might start with this one. Can we predict who's going to get at us and when?
So, of course, if we are going to make easy for somebody to do the job and just get on your computer with very easy password, that's going to be fast. If we are going to make sure that we are not using the same password across all the possible platforms, it's going to be hard. If you are going to use longer passwords than, let's say, 10 characters, it's going to be harder. So depends what technologies, what we are planning to use, how fast they are going to get us.
But using, like, say for example, artificial intelligence or pattern mapping,
Yep.
is there any way we can do that, Richard?
That's what we see. There's some fantastic technology out there which will alert you to all sorts of anomalies, all sorts of strange behaviors on your network. The challenge with all this stuff, though, is having the right people in place to be able to understand it when they get an alert, decipher it, and then make the right decision. So, I mean, technology is never going to be the magic bullet to solve our problems. It's having the right blend of technology so that you've actually got coverage where you need it, that you can detect threats early on as soon as possible. It's having the right intelligence to help drive that entire process so that you've got up-to-date, actionable intelligence that you can put into your technology. But the key component are people that can actually use that technology, use the intelligence, and make a decision around, is this a real problem, or is this just something I can kind of just leave until tomorrow? And that's always going to be the challenge, because we are struggling in the industry. You know, I mean, everybody's building security operations centers, everyone's building incident response teams in the business, because they understand now that security and being able to respond to threats is critical, and they just aren't the people in the industry or, you know, available to support the demand. So security is a thriving industry right now.
Chris?
Yeah, so coming back to your artificial intelligence point, what we're doing at DarkMatter currently is looking at all the current attacks. We're mapping those to different types of attributes, and what we're trying to do is predict, based on what we see in machine learning and artificial intelligence, what future attacks will look like. We're looking at the modus operandi of these attackers and trying to take like a psychological and behavioral approach to that as well, and understanding what are the common behavioral, psychological things that would make them attack us. What would make us an interesting target, not us, but our clients' target. We're trying to come up with new and novel ways of exploiting networks and systems that we think attackers will end up using in 3 months' time, and at the same time, pivoting our defenses to proactively, and our clients' defenses, to proactively counter those.
I suppose we should probably talk about diversity, because, you know, we have a tech panel. There's only one lady here. Is there work being done in increasing the diversity? I mean, Raluca, how many cybersecurity people that went for your job were women? How many women are in your company? Is this an issue for you, do you think?
No, definitely not. It's not an issue. I would love to have more women applying for the jobs that we're posting, but none of them apply.
Does it matter? Is there a difference between the way a woman might approach cybersecurity as opposed to a man?
Not at all. It's the type of skill that it's irrespective of gender. You don't need to be a woman or a man to do a job better. It's just that among women in tech, there's this imposter syndrome going on, thinking that they are not as good as men, so they don't even dare to pursue science degrees and then later on apply for jobs. And we have a huge gender gap at the moment, and huge skill gap in cybersecurity as well. So,
Richard, I mean, like, do you have a lot of women working at FireEye?
We do seem to be behind the times in Europe. I mean, in our US-based operations, we actually have quite a lot of female staff actually doing analyst jobs. They're leading incident response teams, they're sitting in the actual operations center, and they're doing exactly the same job as the men. I mean, here I don't have, you know, we actively encourage female applicants for the roles, but there's just, as would have said, just not many of them apply.
It's really come to the fore, I think, gender equality in technology in the last 10 years. And I guess if it started 10 years ago, then the first generation are now, you know, starting secondary school. Do you think we're going to see a big change in gender roles across technology from now on? Maybe, Jason, what are your thoughts on that?
I do think so. I mean, when I went through college, there was very few, girls in my class, because it was programming, and it just wasn't something that had a female interest at the time. But when I played video games when I was younger, there was no real interest, and that, as kind of, I think that's changed. I think the Xbox generation tended to be more, the games tend to be more boys, but as as apps and mobile games and that, there's much more. I see my kids and my daughter plays games on her tablet as much as my sons do. So I think that is changing, and there's much more comfort with IT and technology now among both genders. I mean, I think in my area, business consulting and cyber consulting, where you're out talking to business people rather than penetration testing and I suppose investigative work, it does seem more balanced. I don't think I know any female penetration testers.
Yeah, me neither.
But I know a lot of female cyber consultants who
Yeah.
So I think
Some
that
of the
there
stuff-
is I think that there is a change, and it's changing now because Bank of Ireland can be actually quite a good example of that change. That 50% of incident responders are women, actually.
Wow, okay. That's certainly a flag. I mean, is that a difficult thing to address? I mean, how do you say, we're looking for people, but we would prefer it if you wore a skirt, Like, how do you address gender inequality when you're trying to, at the same time, allow for gender equality and not pick someone because of their color of their skin or for the gender that they are?
I mean, for me, I think it starts with my children. I mean, I've got 2 girls, and and they're actually they're totally engrossed in technology. They love it. They've got iPads. They're online. I mean, they're both different. One will spend time watching films. The other one loves actually playing and decompiling. We've got things like Raspberry Pis at home. And my 11-year-old, she loves actually creating. She created a Morse code generator a few weeks ago, and I would absolutely love her to kind of move into the security space, because I think that's the kind of career development. And there's a huge potential for security-related roles. And the really interesting thing about security is it changes all the time. I mean, everything we do today, 6 months later, we're talking about different challenges, different new techniques, and that's all driven by the people at the ground level on the coalface that are actually. Because I mean, I don't make the decisions about how we hunt in our customer environments for evil. That's all done by my team, my analysts. That's part of the function, is that they've got the sort of the boring stuff to do about looking at alerts, but also they're the next generation of hunters. They're the ones that are coming up with innovating and finding new ways of doing it. So it's a fantastic career for those people that are interested.
I want to talk a little bit about, because you've got a bit of an international element on the panel, I want to talk a little bit about working in these environments or different approaches internationally. Chris, you're hiring for people who are interested in careers in cybersecurity for the UAE.
That's right.
What is the UAE like when it comes to cybersecurity and info security? That environment, both the political and the geographical environment, how does that affect your vulnerability to threats and so on?
Absolutely. I mean, we can't shy away from the fact that they are in the center of a very unstable region, okay? And that means that as a country, it's being targeted. There's a huge need for cybersecurity. There's...
everyone here okay? You can hear Chris all right?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
As a world, we depend on the natural resources that are pumped out of the ground from the UAE, and the resiliency and the safety of those resources is critical to everyone, to our economy. If that goes down, then food doesn't get delivered in Ireland.
So it's really important, but at the same time, it's really vulnerable.
I wouldn't say it's very vulnerable. I would say that thankfully there's companies like DarkMatter in the UAE that have a skin in the game. There are UAE companies that are trying to secure that as much as possible, to make sure it's resilient, to make sure that gas still gets delivered, food gets delivered in Ireland. And at the same time, this creates a tremendous opportunity and a tremendous need for cybersecurity consultants. And we've hired 500 people in the past year. And,
wow.
And we need about 5 times that, just based on demand, on work we've already sold. So if you guys are interested,
huge. 500 people you have already. You need another 2,500 people.
Easily.
Good God.
So that's why we're here today, to get as many CVs as possible from people interested in cyber.
Okay. You are Romanian/Austrian.
Yeah.
Which is such an interesting mix. Do you think there's a difference between the way security is approached in Ireland or in other countries, or do you think different countries, because of their culture, approach cybersecurity differently?
I would say so. I've been living in 4 different countries already, and I can see that there's there's a slight difference in the way that people approach security. For example, in some countries it's taken more seriously, in others it's not taken seriously at all. So yeah, there is quite a difference, I would say.
And Slavomir?
And I can confirm your statements to this. You can actually notice that certain countries are much focused on the cybersecurity, where some of the other countries are trying to catch up at the moment.
Yeah.
With example, yes, you're trying to hire 2,000 people extra. Yeah, where obviously cybersecurity is getting stronger because we are adding more devices, we are connecting more devices, they are not secure. Somebody needs to look at this. Company needs to be secure.
What about the move that some countries are starting to make, which is trying to control internet with within their own borders? Is that, Jason, maybe, I don't know, if you're, for example, in China, you're not allowed to use certain services. Other countries are now starting to try, particularly in times of crisis, trying to control the internet within their own borders. Is that something we're going to see more of over the next while?
Yeah, I mean, I think I suppose we're coming from Western ideals, and freedom of speech and that. So I think it wouldn't be accepted here. But in various parts of the world where it's much more controlled.
If you have questions, by the way, now's the time to raise your hand. This guy here.
So where it's more controlled, and the nation wants to protect, the country wants to protect themselves or wants to kind of, prevent their citizens from seeing information. It's much easier for them to do because we do rely on technology. We rely on access to the internet and access to information. So it's much easier to kind of block that out.
Okay. Go ahead.
So, thank you for a very interesting talk. Cybersecurity is obviously crucially important right now, but the general public is still very ignorant about it and about things like the dark web. What does the panel think we can do to educate the public about this?
Who wants to take that? Go ahead, Jason.
So I'd often speak to kids about security because they're, I suppose, the digital natives and they just put anything on. So it's about making it real for them. If you put information on Snapchat or on Instagram that you wouldn't put up on a notice board in school, then it shouldn't be there. I'd ask kids, when you're going on, are your friends, are your parents your friends? Are they linked to you on Snapchat? I said, well, I wouldn't let them. I said, well, why not? I said, well, they'll see information that I don't want to see. I said, well, then that information shouldn't be there. So it's about making it more real for them, making them aware of how dangerous it is, how dangerous the world is. The password issue earlier on, I suppose one of the conversations I'd have with people is saying, well, do you use the same password for work and for home, for Amazon and for your Gmail? That I use the same password for everything. I said, well, if you don't protect your organization's password, then you're exposing your data. So if somebody gets your password, they have all of your access, all of your data.
As a broadcaster and someone who's worked in information security, I've often said to people, you need to be really careful about what you put online. But that goes to a point. I also think that we're so worried about that we're starting to be so careful about anything that we do that we're not happy enough to make an opinion because we think someday we might perform a job for that. And I think one of the big problems with the threat of information security is that people are becoming more and more safe, and personalities and dissenting voices and people who are a bit narky are being, everyone's just being a little bit too safe on the internet. I would like to see people say, yes, there's a picture of me peeing at a concert 10 years ago. I was 18. Give me the job. Give me a break. That's it for our cybersecurity panel. These guys, I'm sure they're available if you want to ask them personal questions. Thank you so much to Slavomir Prokop from Bank of Ireland, Richard Harris from FireEye, Jason Guy from EY, Chris Papathanasiou from DarkMatter, and Raluca Saceanu from Smarttech. Thank you very much.